Well, one of the big stories today, on the eve of a Supreme Court hearing on the Rafale jet deal, the CEO of the French plane maker Dassault has claimed that Anil Ambani's group was chosen by them as an offset partner and had nobody else playing a role in that. He said in an interview to ANI, the news agency, that I don't lie. Eric Trappier insisted there was no pressure to go with Anil Ambani, coming days after Congress President Rahul Gandhi accused the CEO of Dassault of lying, saying that there were in fact kickbacks in the deal.
We choose Ambani by ourselves, the Reliance Group. We have already 30 partners which are not Reliance.
The reason I'm asking this is because former President Hollande said that Dassault was not given an option. They had to pick the offset partners which the Indian government told them to. Whereas the Indian government says that nothing of that sort happened. So
it's totally untrue, and the former President Hollande made and performed a correction of what he said. He said clearly the two partners found themselves together. So it's not at all a decision of the French government or the government of India that Dassault selected Reliance. I have a good example. If I started discussions with the Reliance Group in 2011, in 2011, President was not Hollande in France, and Prime Minister was different from the existing Prime Minister of today at that time in 2011. And we settled an agreement in 2012.
But the Reliance of that time was also different.
Yes.
It was the other brother. So it was, the President was different. The only common factor is you. Because the Indian Prime Minister was different, the French President was different, Reliance was different.
Right.
You're the only one who was common.
This is why I say I decided.
Right.
So I said we decided to go ahead with the group Reliance. Within the group Reliance, they are brothers, but they still have their mother. They are together the sons of the former lead of the company, Ambani. And it's a big group, so it was totally in line with the family group to go ahead with Reliance, with one or the other company. We are not putting the money in Reliance. We are putting the money in the joint venture. In this joint venture, I put my know-how, free of charge. I put my know-how on how to produce people. I have some engineers from Dassault and workers from Dassault who are taking the lead as far as the industrial part of this JV is concerned. While at the same time I have an Indian company like Reliance which is putting money also in this JV because they want to support the development of their country. So it's the company is going to know about how to produce aircraft.
Anil Ambani की कंपनी में Dassault ने 284 करोड़ रुपए डाला और उसी पैसे से अनिल अंबानी ने जमीन खरीदी. मतलब साफ Dassault का सीईओ साफ झूठ बोल रहा है.
I don't lie. The truth, everything I declared before, all the statements I made are the truth. I can confirm to you today, and I don't have the reputation to lie. And when you are in my position as a CEO, you don't lie.
Now, as per one report, Dassault 19.5 billion euros for 126 aircraft, the earlier deal, the MMRCA, averaging 155 million euros per aircraft. Tell me if I'm wrong anywhere. But in 2016, Indian government buys the same aircraft from you for 217 million per aircraft. That is 40% higher than the earlier MMRCA deal.
We compare chicken and eggs. We compare something which is not apple to apple. Number one was a contract with 126 aircraft, among them 18 to be produced in France, and then a progressive license with not only HL, but many companies around to be able to produce. So that is one part, with deliveries of jigs, and then labor. Then came the question at that time of how many hours to produce a Rafale by Indian companies, compare to a Rafale produced in France and this and that. Then you have the cost of the labor on this. So this is one matter. Now 36, the price of the 36 was exactly the same compared with the 18. You cannot divide like this.
9% cheaper. Is it the basic frame with non-weaponization, or with the weaponization it's 9% cheaper?
With no weapons. The weapons is a separate contract. Within the 18 or within the 36, you have all the equipment. You have the radar, you have everything, not the missiles. As I said, it's a separate contract.
Meanwhile, 60 retired bureaucrats and diplomats have written an open letter with a copy to the president in which they've questioned what they called an unconscionable and unwarranted delay on the part of the Comptroller and Auditor General, or the CAG, in bringing out audit papers on demonetization and the Rafale deal. The letter notes that the previous CAG had said there would be an audit on the fallout of demonetization, but that it's been more than 20 months since the previous CAG made the above statement, but there is no sight of the promised audit report. Questioning the delay on the Rafale deal audit as well, the letter says that an impression is gaining ground that the CAG is deliberately delaying its audit reports on both these issues till after the May 2019 elections so as not to embarrass the present government. This may create a crisis of credibility for this important institution. Well, NDTV reached out to the CAG for a statement. However, they refused to comment. Well, joining us on the program tonight is Jawahar Sarkar, the former CEO of Prasar Bharati, who was one of the signatories to that open letter. We have also with us Mr. Ajay Dua, former secretary in the Government of India, and Ajay Kumar of the Congress Party. We also have Mr. Nigam staying with us here today. Mr. Sarkar, to you first. This is a very strongly worded letter. What exactly prompted all of you to write this letter at this particular time?
You see, this group has been formed to remind ourselves of our obligations to the Constitution. This group consists of some of the most experienced officers who have worked, and we are aware of the procedures. The intention is not to sensationalize what's going on. Our thrust is to ensure that the CAG comes out with a report in time for proper consideration. We have mentioned that there is an impression that's gaining ground, and it is up to our colleague, Mr. Sharma, the CAG is one of our colleagues, to dispel this notion. We have just brought it to his attention that there is this notion and that he owes it to this august institution of the CAG's office to carry out the duties.
Okay,
he must come up, or his organization.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it is for the CAG. The CAG is a well-tested, time-tested organization that has some of the finest officers in India. It is incumbent on this organization to come out with the truth and nothing but the truth.
All right, Mr. Dua, do you agree with that? Should we have had these reports on demonetization and Rafale by now, or does the CAG need more time? How long do these things normally take?
As we know, the demonetization occurred exactly 2 years ago, in November 2016, and the Rafale deal was, the government-to-government deal was signed in April 2015. So that's been about 3.5 years, 2016.
Well, the actual deal later.
The deal is later, but the obligation, the arrangement entered into in April 2000.
In 2015.
Yes, that's right. Anyway, even for that, there's been over 2 years. Usually, a report on a significant matter like this could come in this time span of 30 months, if we say even 2.5 years. The question is, this has been left discretion. This has been left as a discretion to the CNAG. There is no one today in the scheme of things who can prescribe a particular course of action or give deadlines on time to the CNAG. He is governed by, as you know, Nidhi, one, the Constitution, the 3 articles of the Constitution, then a 1971 Act of Parliament which says conditions, which is talking about his powers, his duties, as also his terms of service. I think a time has come, and now this 1971, this act, and the CNAG
But when you
institution
say-
has been there for a while to look at the provisions under which this organization of CNAG works, if we want to make it accountable.
Okay, and are you
And-
saying
and-
that there is a lack of accountability today on how the CAG functions?
No, I'm not talking. I'm saying there is a discretion. The
That should not be
timeline-
there.
Exactly. I think all institutions, howsoever mighty they might be, need to be accountable to someone, and also they have to work within the system of checks and balances which our constitution envisages for every wing of the executive, judiciary as well as the parliament, and CNAG also needs to be. I think we need to look at the scheme of things on how to make this more accountable.
So is it just a coincidence, Mr. Nigam, that the two issues that the government keeps getting hammered on politically, whether it's Rafale or demonetization, are the two issues on which the CAG's report is delayed? And today when we asked the CAG for a comment, they didn't want to comment on this at all.
I think there's a clear misunderstanding of the entire issue. There was a 2G scam, if you recollect, and the CAG report had come. It took about 4 years to detect that scam, and it's an elaborate process. Same happened with 3G. And
The
same
scam that doesn't exist, apparently, according to the court.
It's going on in court. 2G is still
Yeah,
continuing,
but
except Mr.
not
P.
been overturned yet. Not been overturned yet.
So that is under trial. I'm
Yeah,
not going.
yeah,
I'd say only
Yeah.
scam and the coal block also. It took about 4 years. I'm on the
Okay.
time period,
Yeah,
not
sure.
on the merits of those scam. So, giving by the time frame, which is already there, it's a technical process. So it has happened. Demonetization. I'll deal the two issues separately. Demonetization took place in 2016. It is 2 years now. Its effect and process is, I am sure, it is under scrutiny, and it is going to take some time. Now, coming back to the Rafale, now what is audit is all about? Audit is about receipts and expenditures. Expenditures, maybe, I am not sure whether they have started taking place, and what is audit? Audit is the verification and scrutiny of statement of account at the end of the fiscal year, and the delivery has not yet been started. So, once the expenditure starts taking place, the end of the fiscal year, the audit has to take place, a statutory audit. Nobody going to the CAG or
Then
running to the CAG.
Why did the CAG tell a Congress delegation that all aspects of the Rafale deal were already being examined? This was in September. So then what is the CAG examining? If the planes haven't been delivered, then
see, the expenditure
what have they started examining?
See, ultimately when the expenditure takes place, then the new concept of audit is to go into effectiveness and efficiency of the entire process. But here, this will only happen after the end of the fiscal year. I am very clear on that aspect of the audit. That is the basic principle
So
of
Ajay
audit.
Kumar, is that what the Congress delegation was told when it went to meet the CAG on Rafale? That the CAG is going to locate it in the new fiscal at the end of the fiscal? Because that's not what the reports have said. So
That's
just
what audit
asking,
is all about.
I am asking what you were told.
Look, Nidhi, unfortunately my colleague Mr. Nigam seems to be totally out of sync with what the reality of the CAG role is. It's not an audit of receipt and expenditure only, sir. It is also for process. CAG does process audit. So did the demonetization follow a process? Were the approvals by the RBI in place? It's a process audit. The CAG doesn't just do receipt and account.
I agree with you, but when does it start?
Statutory auditor of the
Ajoy,
Government
when
of
does
India.
it start?
It also, one second, let me come, Mr. Nigam, can I complete, sir?
Yes, sure.
Can I complete, Sir Nigam, sir? I'll complete. So the question is, in Rafale or in the demonetization, the CAG is dragging its feet, at least in terms of the perception outside, in looking at the process. Did the income tax increase the level of so much of people they say they claim? Did the digitalization of economy happen? Did the fake currencies get accrued, etc., 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 based on certain things? That the processes were followed? What was the expenditure of the government for the printing of the notes? And those are issues which the people of India needs to know. On Rafale, the detail is what is the cost of the aircraft? What was the UPA deal? Is there an increase? Is it justified? What is the process followed? Was the cabinet approval taken? Those are all comes under the mandate of the CAG.
I'll answer.
The fact that the CAG is dragging on this, Nidhi, not only brings a lot of discreditability. I'll finish off by saying only one point. The Ambedkar ji principal architect of the Constitution said that the CAG is more important than the judiciary in terms of the impact it has on day-to-day governance. The CAG, by not taking those actions, is opening themselves up to allegations of political interference in constitutional authority, and BJP
what the law says about what the CAG's functions are is very clear. It's supposed to be a watchdog of the public purse, ensuring that every financial transaction is as per rule, sanctioned, provision and propriety, and guided by the principles of economy, efficiency and effectiveness. Right? This is what the CAG's role is supposed to be.
To that, the role of performance audit has been added down the years. When this was, the act was
it's not just looking at receipts.
Yes, it is performance.
And I said so. And I said so.
I think the point being made, subsequent to what you just read out, that's the legal provision. Then the CAG himself, in consultation with everybody else who was involved, also said that henceforth CAG would also be looking at performance audit of the government's actions.
So when does it start?
Prashant Bhushan is joining us as well. Mr. Bhushan, see, a couple of things we talked about before you came on. One is that there's nothing that actually prevents the CAG from taking 5 years to prepare a report on demonetization or even the Rafale deal, because there's no time limit within which the CAG works. If, as Mr. Deshathan Nigam says, the 2G report also took 4 years, why should we be expecting that the CAG should come out with, say, a report on demonetization 2 years after it happened?
No, I don't think that the 2G report took 4 years. I think it was done in a little over 2 years.
I'm sure of that.
But even if that were the case, you see, the question is, CAG is supposed to do an audit of all transactions which impact the consolidated fund of India. Now, demonetization as well as the Rafale deal are very, very important transactions directly and very seriously affecting the consolidated fund of India. Now, why has the CAG not begun a serious audit on both these very, very huge transactions, very huge deals? Now, earlier we were under the impression that the CAG audit of Rafale has started, but now we are being told that the government is saying, no, CAG will do the audit after the contract is completed, after the contract is performed, after the performance of the contract is completed. At least the audit of the contract itself can be done right now. The future performance can be done later. It can't be that you are saying that the aircrafts will be delivered up till 2022 or 2023 and only thereafter the CAG will start the audit. After all, the basic contract has been done. The CAG is entitled to audit whether the contract has been done in accordance with the rules, whether the price that has been agreed to under the contract is a price which has been arrived at after due diligence, etc. Why is that audit not being done? Okay. Same thing about demonetization. Demonetization is a decision which was taken more than 2 years ago. Now, 2 years is more than enough time for the CAG to have completed that audit as to how this decision was taken, what its impact has been on public finances, on the consolidated fund, how much money was netted out of it, how much money was spent in printing new notes, what kind of damage it has done to the public exchequer and to the people
those
otherwise.
Those are actually important questions, which is why I wish the CAG had actually responded to our questions today on the record and told us what the status of these various reports actually is. Mr. Sarkar, the question though is that do you see this as a part of a larger narrative that's currently playing out about the undermining of institutions, and do you see this as a part of that, whether it is CBI, yes, RBI and now maybe even the CAG? Even the CVC has been come into question.
You see, Nidhi, you're perfectly right. The purpose of so many officers, retired officers getting together under this banner called constitutional conduct is because of our apprehension that has been proved at every successive occasion that the public institutions, the national institutions, are being undermined. That's fact one. The other one on which we have hinted is that the files concerned, the concerned files in these two issues have not yet been examined. Now, coming out with a report is a different matter. But let the government can at least come out tomorrow and say that the files have been sent for preliminary examination. It's distressing because the winter session of Parliament is a last practical session when these things could be discussed. Why is the winter session being avoided? It is incumbent on the present CAG to ensure that his machinery that is capable of doing excellent work is allowed to devote time to much more important issues like Rafale, like demonetization, than, let us say, nitpicking on TA bills of 42 rupees. You see, it's a question of priorities, and these priorities are determined by the leader. So that's our submission. In a way, we are exerting pressure on the CAG to come up with its constitutional obligations. Remember, the CAG Act begins with the word duties before powers. So the first word in the Act of the CAG is CAG duties, powers, etc., 1971. We are simply reminding our colleagues, and we have already
about
described the
duty
CAG
is.
machinery, the audit machinery is what his duty is.
Mr. Dua.
That's all. And we need to clear the air.
Okay, Mr.
I
Dua.
think,
are trying
I think
our
what's
best
being
to put
said
facts.
is that anything which is of consequence to the public, government's funding, public's money, that needs to be audited by the CAG, and it should be done promptly. But I come back to the point that how we do not know today, as of today, whether the files have been summoned by the CNAG or not, whether those have been given to him or not. We are all, including in the petition which has been signed today, there is a degree of speculation, I would venture to say. But having said that, I think
So that's
it
the
will be,
point.
Jawad, just a moment. I think it will be conjecture to say that pressure is being exercised upon him by the executive to delay this action. It could, I'm
just asking if it's a coincidence, because these are two politically
absolutely.
explosive issues.
No, I totally agree with you on that. So we do not know if the exercise is currently on. What I would like to emphasize is that there is need to circumvent such things happening, and that can
By
be done
relooking at
the
Mr. Nigam,
provisions under which the CNAG functions,
How should-
and whether it should be at all
That's an
single
excellent
person
point.
CNAG.
Yeah.
Election Commission
Yeah.
used to be a single
Yeah.
member
And there was
one.
a reason it was made into
it was
a-
done.
Yeah.
I think there is time we did that. Also, the process of selection of the CNAG itself, whether it should be left to the government alone or whether we need to have
think that's an
a body
excellent point.
like the Prime Minister, the Chief Justice of India,
Like you
and
have for the
even
CBI director.
even the Speaker.
But
because
Mr. Nigam, how do you look at this pressure group? I mean, the fact that you have these very respected retired bureaucrats, civil servants who have written an open letter like this.
I have a very strong view on that. I think they have a political agenda. They have a kindergarten knowledge of audit. The only
No.
statement
I
am
object.
making a
I
very
object.
clear statement, and
Ajay,
I'm accusing
if
you.
anybody has a
I am accusing you.
No, no.
I'm making a very
No,
clear
no,
statement,
if Ajay-
and let me tell you once
Ajay,
again.
I
Please
am
let me
accusing
complete.
you in turn.
Please let me complete.
I am accusing
Mr.
Please
Sarkar,
let me
let
complete.
him just,
You
I'll
cannot
come back
raise
to you.
such
I'll
a-
come back
Please
to you.
let me
No,
complete.
Why would you
Please.
say?
Sorry,
Why would you
Ajay.
say that former
Ajay, you cannot
ambassadors
raise this issue.
to
They have
various
their own
countries,
ideology.
Former
No,
secretaries,
They have
to
their own.
Government of India.
No,
They're
no.
all
The
ideologically
names don't
aligned.
matter. Names don't matter. They have a political
No.
ideology.
We cannot.
They
You
formed
have
a group,
no right.
and
You have no
all
right
those
to
questions
come
that
on
have
this
been
stage
raised.
and
Please
make
let me
such an
complete.
accusation.
All those questions which have been raised will only come into the question the moment the statement of account of financial statement goes to the CAG.
But why would you
And
accuse
then
them
the-
of a political agenda for asking a question?
Because they have kindergarten knowledge about audit. That is what I am saying. If they had the basic knowledge
Is
about
that,
audit,
is that a fair comment to
Yes,
be
it is
given,
a very-
given their stature? They are
stature,
former secretaries, former
see,
envoys
they have a
to
political
countries.
ideology. They have a political
Why is it
ideology.
political?
Because once you do not
Certainly
rely on
not.
those audit
Certainly
principles and straight away
So
jump to
everybody
something.
who questions the government
I'm
of
not
India,
saying everybody.
or-
I'm not saying. At
but
least
all of them,
at-
60 respected retired
I think it will be
bureaucrats.
an
Political
unfair
agenda.
statement to make.
No, it is unfair because they're hiding their knowledge of audit. The basic principles of audit they are hiding.
I don't think they are saying.
No.
They are not at all
being politically motivated.
Yes, I
That's
am, and I'm
unfair.
making.
No,
yes,
I think all that
it's
they
a
are
very
saying.
serious charge, and I'm making it. And
Mr. Sarkar, let me give Mr. Sarkar a chance to respond to that.
Audit principles. They must know what audit principles are.
This is a wild political accusation being made, not only by a politician, but unfortunately by a person who was a civil servant. I mean, there are many other ways you can ingratiate himself. He can come closer to the government that he wants, but not at the expense of casting aspersions on the reputations of 120 officers. No, it was not
your
done.
knowledge of audit.
No, I don't think you can do
You know
that.
what audit is
It's
all about.
treachery.
You cannot draw your conclusions.
No, you did cast
Mr.
aspersions.
Nigam, you did cast an aspersion.
I'm making a
and I
serious
don't
charge.
think it is fair
No,
at all on
I
your
am
part
making a
to
very
say that.
serious charge
No,
because
but-
you're hiding your knowledge about audit.
No, they are not saying that. I think you're questioning
know-
it.
we
You
know
are-
exactly
All
what
those
audit
questions
is
will only come
far
once the
better than
financial
you.
statement goes
Nothing to do
before.
with
Far
the-
better than
nothing
you.
to do
No,
with the
we will
financial
not
statement.
allow
Obviously,
such a
audit is about expenditure and then the
to do with the
effectiveness.
process as much as the
government-
financial
a
statement.
contract
But that
entered-
starts, please. But that starts when the financial statement goes before.
Quick
before
last
the
comments
CAG.
from Prashant Bhushan first and Ajoy Kumar. Prashant Bhushan, I'm
Nidhi.
sure it doesn't surprise you
Nidhi.
that these bureaucrats have been labelled in the way that they have today.
No, it doesn't surprise me at all because the BJP has this habit of calling anybody who is a dissenter to be an anti-national, to call them urban Naxals, etc. This is their whole method and this is their system. Now, Mr. Deshratan Nigam is saying that these 60 former secretaries and very, very senior bureaucrats, many of whom have been in the account service, etc., have no understanding of audit. What understanding of audit does Mr. Nigam have? Does he know what audit
least
is?
more than what
has
is
he
being
ever
shown on this
done an
channel.
audit? And
At least more than what is being shown.
What
They are
business
being
does he
you are
have
being
to
unfair.
say?
No, I'm not.
You
I'm
see,
making
this
a
this
conscious
the
statement.
audit.
Nidhi.
I have done several cases involving the CAG audits.
So have I.
use CAG audit
So
in
don't
2G
let us
and
not
Colgate
display
in
our-
so many cases.
Let us not
Mr.
display our legal knowledge. This
Deshratan
is a
Nigam
financial
applauded
knowledge.
me when I used the CAG audits in Colgate, 2G, etc. And today he has the temerity to say that just because people, senior bureaucrats, are raising questions about the intention of the CAG and the intention of the government in not doing or not allowing an audit of demonetization of the Rafale deal, he says that these people have a kindergarten knowledge of audit.
That is what has been displayed here.
Well, I'm going to invoke a ceasefire.
No,
Thank you to you all for joining
Nidhi.
us. I think there are very
Nidhi.
serious questions, though. We do hope that the CAG answers them and at least tells the public what is the status of these reports at least. Have you at least called for the files? Are you planning to call for the files? Is there a preliminary report you've prepared? I think people do have a right to know, and that is something for the CAG to ponder over. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you again tomorrow. Good night.